fine voice, I intend to give you the dulcet tones of what's the guy's name? The black fellow that has such a powerful voice. James Earl Jones. That's his name, James Earl Jones. That's what I'm going to bless you with tonight. See there? Now, I brought the water because without the water, it would probably be only a 5 to 7 minute lesson. With the water, I think I can go for till the water runs out, I think. Don't rush to try and steal the water. Just wait. All right. Stanton Luke went with me today to McCready and took over the song leading part, so that saved me a little bit. And so tonight, we follow up our family day thinking about how a Christian home should be opportunistic, taking advantage of opportunities that God provides. And those opportunities will be directly related to the talents that we possess. The passage that is before us mentions that. It says, if you have a talent to speak, speak like the oracles of God. If you have a talent to minister, minister it so that others will see and know God through your ministry. So the question for us tonight is, how do we create those opportunities? How do we take our homes and say, God, provide us opportunities to reach out through our homes to those who are in need? I want you to turn with me to 5 passages that will help us answer that question. Turn first of all to the book of Genesis, chapter 6, be looking at verse 9. Genesis chapter 6, verse 9. How do we create opportunities? Remember, God used Noah and his family to make a good impression and to be a good influence on everyone around, even though no one accepted the influence they gave. So how was Noah able to be used by God? Look at verse 9. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Here it is. Noah walked with God. In order for our homes to have opportunities from God to serve Him, we have to be available. We have to be available. Now, how much sense does it make for someone to have this great desire to play on a ball team? I mean, you just want to do it so badly. I want to play on the ball team. But you don't show up to tryouts. Will you play? Nope. When I was in high school and college, I noticed there were these guys who could play guitar. And because I was convinced it was just that, because they could play a guitar, they could strike up a group of girls anywhere they wanted to, who would just sit around while they played the guitar. Man, I wanted to play the guitar. But you know what? I never signed up for a single lesson. Guess what? I can't play the guitar. Well, why was God able to use Noah? He was available. He was available. He walked with God. Every day, Noah was available to God. If we're going to be homes that God can use, then they must be available to God. They must be homes that God can say, all right, I see that you're ready. I have an opportunity for you. Now, if we want to create those opportunities, if we want God to send us those opportunities, then we better be available. Whatever He needs, whenever He needs, we are available. Let's go to another passage, 1 Corinthians chapter 16. Every now and then I like to do this because I think we get lazy. I think we get lazy during preaching and without turning to Bibles. So I want you to turn there. That's why we're looking at them. Let's look at verse 15, 1 Corinthians chapter 16. I urge you, brethren, you know the household of Stephanas, that it is the first fruits of Achaia, and that they have devoted themselves to the ministry of the saints. Number two, if you want to be a person, a home, or an individual that God will create and have opportunities, how can we create the opportunities that might come to us? Here's the second thing. You have to be devoted to the idea of saying, I want to find those opportunities. This word in the Greek is the word tasso, and it means to set a priority, to arrange, to put in order. So here's what it said about the household of Stephanas. They prioritized looking for opportunities to minister. They prioritized. Well, now, if we're going to be one of those, and that was one of the things this morning, one of the opportunities that we ought to take advantage of is the opportunity to minister to others. Well, how high on the list of everything you do as an individual and everything that you do as a family, how high on the list is the opportunity to minister to others? Is it a priority? Is it something that you make a high priority? I know of families that do that well because they start when their children are young and they take them to visit when people are sick, or they take them to visit those who are shut in, or they take them over to work in someone's yard. They always are involved. This is teaching and training children to prioritize helping others. So if you want to be a home that God will give opportunities to, you have to be devoted to it. You have to prioritize it. 2 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 16. Here we go. Here's the third one. The Lord grant mercy to the household of Onesiphorus, for he often refreshed me and was not ashamed of my chains. That word refreshed is an interesting word. It is a compound word that means the first part, to complete a process. The second part, suke, is a wind or a cooling breeze. And the word means, as used in this context, to put a cooling breeze on the wounds where someone is hurt. Your child burns their finger. Let me blow on it, make it feel better. Well, notice what he's saying about Onesiphorus. Onesiphorus was unashamed. That's why God could use him. Unashamed because he was willing to go to the prison where Paul was and blow a cold or a cool breeze on the wounds from the shackles that bound him in the prison. Other passages show us how that was done. You remember Paul and Silas when they were in prison? Apparently, the Roman prisons, they would have the people sitting down and their feet straight out in stocks and their hands straight out in the stocks. And that's how they sat. Therefore, this is the picture. What does Onesiphorus do? He's unashamed. He doesn't have any problem going where that person is and dabbing the help that is needed on the wounds. If you want to be used by God for opportunities of service that He might give, we have to be unashamed. Unashamed because God will not always call us to the best of places. In fact, most often, He will call us to places that are far less desirable than what we choose for ourselves. But if you're going to be used by God, you have to be unashamed. Have you created an environment in your home that says that unless your home is up to the standards of mine, then I don't want to be around you? If so, God can't use you to minister to people who are worse off than you. Be unashamed, because that's what's called for. Back up to verse 5. Verse 5, famous verse. Notice what Paul said to Timothy. When I call to remembrance the genuine faith that is in you, which dwelt first in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded is in you also. This word genuine means without hypocrisy. He didn't say one thing and do another. Paul said, I know you have a genuine faith, but here's what's most important. How did he have it? Because his family had made an investment in it themselves. Timothy had a genuine faith because first, his grandmother did. And second, his mother did. And third, he did. Do you want your home to be used for the Lord? Then what investment do you have personally in doing something? What investment do you do to say to God, I want to be used? Or are you satisfied just to let somebody else do it? Do you just say, oh, I don't have to worry about that because so-and-so will? What about your investment? What about our investment? See, Timothy was what he was because his own grandmother and mother were invested in the same thing. They vested in him. Acts 18, final one. Acts 18. Now we come to Aquila and Priscilla. The story you know. A certain Jew named Apollos, born in Alexandria, an eloquent man and mighty in the Scriptures, came to Ephesus. This man had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and being fervent in spirit, he spoke and taught accurately the things of the Lord, though he knew only the baptism of John. So he began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When? Interesting word. When Aquila and Priscilla heard him, they took him aside and explained to him the way of God more accurately. I don't think that Apollos announced that he was coming. I don't think Apollos ahead of time had any indication given of what he was going to teach and what he was going to say. But here's a home, a husband and a wife who, when, without prior notification, they heard him speak, immediately they took him aside and corrected the error. because they were prepared. They were prepared. God has opportunities available for us in our homes. But if we're not prepared, if we are not preparing, if we are not getting ourselves to the point where when God calls, we have the opportunity to answer, then our opportunities won't come. So the question is, are you prepared? Are you preparing your home for God to use? If you are, then you will find that you will create all kinds of opportunities. Opportunities for God to use you. But if your home is not available to God, if it's not devoted to God, if you are not unashamed as to wherever He might send you, and if you're not personally invested in it, and if you're not prepared, then the opportunities from God will just pass right on by. And you will not receive the benefit of how it is to serve the Lord. Truly one of the most wonderful experiences that anybody can ever have is to have studies with people that culminate in a decision to obey the gospel. Maybe you were involved the entire way, as I have been many times, and had the opportunity to assist that person in immersing them into Christ. Maybe you were involved as someone else taught the class. Maybe you taught them and then they quit and somebody else picked it up and then they obeyed the gospel, but you were there. You started the process. There's no greater thing than that. And the benefit to you when you see someone else complete their faith in Jesus is powerful. And then every other opportunity that God gives is a time to bless yourself while blessing them. Our homes should be opportunistic, and this is how we can create it. But God does not use the world like He uses His children. So if tonight you're not a child of God, it's time to obey the gospel so that God can use you. And if you are not living as God would have you live tonight, get started so that God can give you opportunities to serve others. If you need us, will you come as we stand and sing?